The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Hello and welcome to The People's View. My name is David Schoeneman. I'll be your host on this program again today. On People's View, we take a look at items that are happening in the news, whether it's state, local, or federal, that are important to you, especially around election time. Today, we're about 2 weeks ahead of a very important municipal election here in Nashua. Municipal elections are very important because they have an effect on our daily lives as taxpayers and residents in this city, and they have a big effect on our taxes too. Right now, we're going to be talking about some proposals that are coming up for this next term that will involve a great deal of money that's going to come out of your pocket. With me today to talk about something that's happening is my panel of experts. I'll start over here.
I'm Doris Hohensee. I'm currently on the school board and I'm up for re-election.
I'm Carl Seidel, and I'm a four-term Republican from Ward 1 for the state representative.
And I'm Don LeBrun. I'm former state representative, former alderman, and now serving on the Board of Medicine.
I want to thank you all for coming in. I was an alderman, of course, too. And when these municipal elections come around, I'm not sure if folks understand how much money can be involved and how much money is really at stake. And what's coming up in this next term is a school expansion. About $120 million of new bonding is being proposed for school renovations for the middle schools in the face of ever-declining enrollment. Doris, tell us what's going on. You're a school board member. Tell us what's happening.
Well, our budget's about $160 million, 150, 160 when you count benefits. But this project is looking like it'll be $120 million or up. Give or take, because it keeps changing. It started at $40 million. It was just to renovate Elm Street School, middle school. And then they decided, the superintendent decided that he wanted equity. So he wanted all three middle schools to be upgraded. And they decided that maybe Elm Street was too old and we need a whole new school way over on Buck Meadow by Cherrywood, which is over by Captain's Corner. It's Ward 9. We have to go through Ward 5,
right,
probably for busing, so you've got more busing costs. So the facilities they're proposing, this is what I don't understand. The equity that they want, they'd have 134,000 square feet at Pennachuck Middle School, 123,000 square feet at Fairgrounds, and 193,000 at the new Elm Street facility over by Buck Meadow. Well, that's not equitable. And I know there's some more special needs in Elm Street than the other schools, but I thought the idea was we have over 1,000 students there now, and the other schools had 600 and 700. We were going to make them 800 across the board. But the numbers that there's projecting would be all 800, 800, 815. So they're pretty much the same number of students. I don't know what the composite of special ed precisely is for that school, but I don't see how you've got 70,000 square feet more in that one facility. Mm-hmm. And part of the project was supposed to include the administration. We have 10,000 square feet for the administration. We were going to put that into the project, into the renovation of Elm Street. But no, it's not in the plans anymore because we wanted to take the Brentwood rental property that we have and bring that into the central office. They would get food from Ledge Street next door, and that facility was big enough so we would get rid of the rental property that we're paying for.
All right, let's take a look at this. Let's go back to the basics here. We have about $150 million on our overall school budget per year. Is that correct? $150, $160 million.
And 80%.
And some of that is from the city, some of it is from the state, benefits, might be some federal money in there too. But it's a great deal of money. So we're talking about a proposal that is nearly equal to the annual budget for the entire district. And this is a capital expenditure building and that kind of thing. We know, I think, from previous experience, anything to do with the city, that generally speaking, the numbers as they come in are larger than the numbers that are estimated. So we have an estimate of $120 million for an expansion in the face of declining enrollment. We have 17 schools, I believe. Is that correct?
17 plus Brentwood, yes.
So 17 schools. And in the last 10 years or 15 years, we've seen a steadily declining enrollment. We added all-day kindergarten a couple of years
Yes.
ago.
That added
And even with
200.
that bump, our overall enrollment is still going down. So in the face of declining enrollment, we have a proposal to spend $120 million, an amount nearly equal to the total school budget for a year, in order to do this grand expansion. When we really, it would seem to me, common sense would say we should be looking at some consolidation of schools,
Sure.
not really an expansion. Now, how are the schools performing? Let's just touch on that briefly. Are we getting?
We're not allowed to discuss that. I would love to discuss it because the scores that I'm seeing are coming down.
And that's not
And-
good.
Public.
So
That's public.
when
public.
they're on the state website. They'll talk about the middle schools individually, the high schools individually, but they won't talk about the public elementary schools individually. We have 12 of those. Some are performing much higher than the others. We need to discuss what are they doing, and they're saying, oh, well, there's special needs. I think it's more than just that. And if they're overall down, is it the tools we're giving the teachers? Not the teachers. They're saying, oh, you're criticizing our teachers. Heavens, no. But are we handicapping our teachers by giving them the wrong tools? Can we evaluate that? We're never allowed to evaluate that.
Well, I'll tell you a little story. I'm sorry, Carl. Why don't you go ahead?
No, I just was saying, isn't that your job to evaluate and see what the performance
Well,
is?
it depends on the majority of your board. When the majority of your board says whatever the administration wants, the administration gets, and the minority disagrees, we don't get very far.
Now, how is this decision on this bond, this $120 million bond and this expansion, how is this decision going to be made? The school board can make their own decisions, and they would have to endorse it, but then it still goes to the Board of Aldermen. Is that correct?
One state law, RSA 199.3, says we as a board have to approve the plans for any renovation or new building. This joint special construction committee, building committee, thinks that they're in charge. And they've said, Alderman Dowd has said repeatedly, they're making the decisions. And I'm saying, well, I know I'm going to be outvoted, but I should come back to the board. We should follow the state law.
Yeah, I used to serve on the Joint Special School Building Committee when I was an
But
alderman.
once we make a decision on plans, then it goes to the building committee to oversee the building. That's their role, not planning the thing. The state
Right.
laws is pretty clear. And as for funding it, that would go to the alderman. I don't think we don't have any ability to say.
But the plan should come from the school board, and it's very important for folks at
The
home to
plan
understand.
comes from the school board. The funding comes from the Board of Aldermen.
Right.
Well, it's important for the folks at home to understand that $120 million is in the balance here when they're considering who to vote for in the school board, considering who to vote for in the Board of Aldermen. There's not a lot of feedback here, I think, from the public. I understand that this joint special committee seems to be taking control to keep it out of the hands of the school board, and I think really out of the hands of the public, because the school board would be the group that has a public meeting, right?
We have a public meeting tonight, and we're going to get presented what they've proposed. We haven't had a presentation for over a year and a half.
What's the agenda of that public meeting tonight?
They're going to present to us, and we're going to ask questions. But it comes back to us as a board to decide what to do. But we cannot decide tonight because we haven't had a hearing. Why would we decide anything without letting the public have a hearing? We're supposed to have an informational session tomorrow where my understanding is they're not even going to tape the public asking the questions. So
The question and answer session will not be open to the public.
it'll be open to the public, but it won't be taped. We're going to meet in 7:15, and we're going to have a presentation for a half hour. Then we're going to a different room, leaving the cameras behind for the public to ask questions.
I hope they'll have reporters there that take.
Maybe they'll have reporters, but I don't think they'll have cameras.
Yeah.
And it's not like our meetings get overly crowded. Well, I'm delighted whenever I see parents. We had the parents there for the bullying thing.
Doesn't the public have a right to know?
I hope so. But this committee has violated the right to know 34 times because the chairman is taking voice votes when he's got a member on the phone. You can't hear his vote if you have a voice vote because the ones in the room will overshout the person on the phone. So he's got to straighten that out. And our board of education didn't say that we should investigate. They voted against that motion. But we have $235,000 that were decided on and expended through that committee. on illegal votes, illegal voice votes. So
I like to take a look at how this relates to what's going on overall. I like the big picture. It seems to me that we have a theme in the city of Nashua these days where the public is cut out of what's happening.
Yeah.
And this is very disturbing, I think. And folks at
Absolutely.
home need to understand that these elections do matter. And right now we have a Board of Aldermen that is very one-sided. A lot of yes men. I think we have a Board of Education that's got a lot of yes men towards the superintendent. And that's not the way it's supposed to be.
we've
I
got a
think
strong minority of 3.
strong minority, but it's still a minority, and
Yes.
it's unfortunate. So people at home need to understand. If we look at what's going on in the city with hiding things from the public, we certainly have what sounds like Joint Special School Building Committee is doing by having these meetings to come up with a plan on how to spend $120 million taxpayer money for a school expansion. That's kind of out of the public eye. And the school board apparently is being discouraged from having an opinion or voting on it. And then at the same time, we have what's going on with the assessing department, where a lot of things are not going right there. And it seems to be a cover up in the administration on really to protect their own reputation on mismanaging this department. And we see these kinds of things time and time again. And I don't recall seeing that in the city of Nashua. Maybe years ago.
On top of that, you have this incident of bullying and stuff. That's
Bullying,
going on.
exactly right.
And that's not being exposed to
That
the
was hidden
public.
too. So all these things are being hidden. And I want folks at home, they really need to understand and be informed, because the city seems to be hiding some very critical facts from the folks.
Well, they're not even notifying the parents when there's a bullying incident.
Right.
The parents don't even know it's happening.
Last year we had
except that their child tells them, but the school is not getting involved at all.
Well, I'm glad that one parent took it upon himself to put it on
Absolutely.
Facebook. That was
Absolutely.
very, very important. He should not be criticized. He should be commended.
And he
He
got 2
certainly should.
restraining orders, and I think his problem is they're giving attention to. But last year, we had a mother come to us. She said she had 3 restraining orders, and the bullies were still in the daughter's classroom.
That's
So
unbelievable.
we as a board are not allowed to touch or do anything until they go up the chain of command. So if it comes to us, then we're delighted that we can actually weigh in. But it's hard for us to know, are they enforcing the rules, the policies that we have? Are they not? Are they not working? Because we don't get enough feedback.
Aren't you supposed to find out too when principals and vice principals are suspended?
Well, under the previous superintendent, we were called into a meeting and everything was explained. It's been, what is it, a week or 2? We don't know anything more than the
About
public.
the two.
And last time we gave approval for the interims. This time they're just in place.
Is there any truth to the rumor too that we have gangs in the high school?
Again, the administration would never tell us. You see, there's this law, persistently dangerous school. If you have 3 assault type incidents, and that poor girl had 2 alone. If they have 3 in a year, 3 years in a row, that school is labeled persistently dangerous.
Oh, really?
Then the parents of the children in that school can ask to have their children out of that school. So it's a big pressure that they don't want to create a persistently dangerous school, but they're not doing the discipline needed. I've heard from a high school teacher that you can have 1 incident, and if it was a white child, they will get 2 weeks suspension, and if a student of color, from the same incident, they will get 1 week. So what message are we telling our students? Is that fair? Is that how we don't have that in our policies. So what's happening on the ground level? We don't know.
I would say that the message that's being conveyed is that the schools don't want to be embarrassed.
Well, the board majority is going with the administration and not investigating.
And the
not
administration
requiring
does not want to
transparent-
be embarrassed.
No, they're very happy with this school board. And that's why the next election, if we vote more of those in, 4 of them are staying. If we get 1 more like-minded individual that gives the administration everything and forget accountability, then this will continue for 2 more years.
And we don't want to have that. And clearly there are a lot of things that are occurring in the school board that I think, or in the school administration, that are worthy of embarrassment. A normal person would be embarrassed. We had the superintendent's behavior towards a former board member, George Farrington. We called the police on him several times. He has called the police on other board members.
He's called it on myself. He
On
called it
you?
At night, I posted something on Facebook, free speech. He didn't like the post, and he had the police come. The police found nothing wrong, but I didn't need somebody knocking on my door 9 or 10 o'clock
No, it's
after
terrible.
a meeting.
It demonstrates that he's not capable of dealing with these kinds of uncomfortable situations himself.
Right.
He's got to call the police, and that's unacceptable. So we have that kind of embarrassment going on. We have the dangerous embarrassment of the bullying, and then we have secret meetings about spending $120 million.
Well, not only that,
This is not right.
that's bonded. You're paying a lot more in interest
Yes.
too over a 20-year period.
Sure you are.
Yeah.
So we're talking about money, control, and hey, how do we measure the education our kids are getting?
Well, the measurements that are out there, which you can find online, are not good. By contrast, of course, we have the charter schools here in town. Now, Don, you're involved with Micro Society Academy. We, of course, have the high school Academy for Science and Design. These are
Right.
nationally ranked schools where the per pupil cost is a fraction of what we're spending locally.
Don't blame our teachers. We have some good teachers. They're not given the flexibility to use the tools that they might find the
Right.
most effective. If we're giving them tools that are substandard, curriculums that are substandard,
That's the problem.
students. I mean, we had a problem over a math problem in 8th grade. The student was right. She brought it to the teacher. The teacher marked her down. If there was a 4-point scale, she got a 2 instead of a 4. Went to the principal, and the principal said, "Well, we just decided that if the majority of the students get the question right, then it must be valid."
Oh, my goodness.
Well, the majority thought the world was flat, so Columbus should never have gotten funded.
So groupthink is
Yes.
going on in the schools too. This is terrible. I
So-
want to tell a quick story about materials. When I was on the Joint Special School Building Committee, we took a tour through one of the schools that was being renovated, and I forgot which one it was. But anyway, walking around, and Alderman Dowd was there, and the principal of the school was there, and the engineers and all that were there, and there was material everywhere, educational materials, and I think it was Alderman Dowd who told the principal, make sure you tell your teachers not to store their materials on top of the cabinets because you're blocking the ventilation. So there's not enough room in the cabinet to store all the materials. They had to put it on top and it's blocking the ventilation. That school was swimming in materials.
Well,
and by
that's-
contrast, you go to the
that's-
charter schools and there's nothing. So some of the
It's-
money, and maybe the schools aren't spending it where they're supposed to,
it's
but
not-
they're spending a lot of money on materials. So anytime someone says we need more pens and paper,
No.
you're you're swimming in materials.
That school is probably an open concept school. It's one big open space, and they separate by little bookshelves. They don't have enough storage. They don't have separate classrooms with closets and storage.
well,
so
I'll
they're
tell
at a
you
disadvantage
that
by
the charter
design.
schools have
Well-
nothing in comparison. So I just don't buy the argument there's not enough.
Well,
I think I would buy your argument that it's not the right
That
stuff.
design, I was in that school.
or it's
And
not the right materials.
Well, we took a fad. We said, oh, open concept. So we opened them all, and we've had all kinds of problems with that concept. And now we have to renovate that to put it, it's security. There's no security. You can't shut and lock the door. There's so many problems with those schools.
Well, there are a lot of problems, and I think that throwing $120 million at it is not going to provide a solution.
Money should be carefully spent. And
should.
that's my concern.
Well, Doris, I want to thank you for your service on the board, and I wish you the best in getting reelected because we only have 2 or 3 voices on that board, 3 voices, it sounds like, that are speaking for the taxpayers and really for the students, too. Everyone else seems to be yesing the administration, and yesing administration involves spending more money and things that don't improve performance.
But we have a slate of 5. Because if I win, it's not going to help anything. I need 5 wins to get the majority back. So myself, Howard Kaufman, who's also an incumbent, Paula Johnson, who was on the board before, Bert Jantz, and Greg Serby. We're running together as a team, and hopefully we can bring some common sense.
I think our audience also ought to know that a lot of the People's View interviews of people like your group will be shown on Channel 96 the whole week before election. So they'll be able to get a little picture of what you're promising to do if elected.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Can you name those names again just for the folks at home to hear one
Myself, Doris
more time? Doris
Hohensee,
Hohensee.
Howard Kaufman, Paula Johnson, Bert Jantz, and Greg Serby.
Good. Thank you.
So we-
That's a
Wish
good
you all-
team.
They will
It
be
is a great
strong.
team.
Great
They'll be
team.
willing to speak up and challenge the status quo. And that's what's needed.
And it's not about being obstructionist.
No, it's
It's
saying
about getting answers to important questions.
follow this law. And we can work
And about
within the
following the
law, and we
laws.
can still get the objective done. It's a matter of, most of it's the rule of law, parliamentary procedure, board policy, state law, the whole bit.
Well, we have a Board of Aldermen, of course, election coming up at the same time. And I think we have a similar situation there. So we have some candidates who I think are going to speak for the people if they're elected. Now, who are they? We've got Kevin Avard,
Kevin Avard
who's running
is
against
past-
Alderman Dowd,
past
which I think
senator,
is great. Past senator. He's doing a great job.
We have Mark Cookson.
Mark Cookson, he was former Ward 1 Alderman. He was former Alderman at large.
Right.
He has
Kevin
a reputation for being honest, having a lot of integrity, and for sticking up for people at home. So you
Kevin
got
Scully,
Kevin Scully.
who's another representative,
Yep.
and Bill Ohm,
Great.
who was, 4 terms? No, 3 terms.
3-term.
3 terms.
So we have people who have a lot of experience in the State House and who have a lot of experience serving the folks at home, and I think that's very important. Don and you were both working up at the State House, and you understand how important it is to pick up the phone when someone calls, to answer that phone, and get back to people, and to help them get the services that their tax dollars are paying for. And I think that slate of aldermanic candidates, those 4 you mentioned, I think will do
Art
that.
They will.
Caffrey, isn't he in Ward 4?
Oh, yes, there's
Yes.
a couple on the Ward 6 too.
That was Kevin Scully.
No, 7 is.
7 is Drew Sullivan.
Oh, Drew Sullivan. Okay, I got them mixed up.
Let's go over those names again. Starting with Ward 1.
Okay.
Ward 1 is Mark Cookson.
Right.
Strongly endorse Mark Cookson. Ward 2, we have
Avard.
former Senator Kevin Avard.
Right.
Very good. Ward 3, unopposed.
Right.
Unfortunately, that was the word that I had before. Unopposed this time. That's a very big disappointment. I couldn't do it for family reasons with our 3-year-old at home, but we're disappointed in no one in Ward 3. Ward 4,
Art Caffrey.
Art Caffrey.
Yeah.
In Ward 5,
No one.
No one.
no one. Okay, that's another disappointment, unfortunately. Ward 6,
Kevin Scully.
Kevin Scully, yeah, good. Kevin, fully, strongly endorse him. Ward 7,
Drew Sullivan.
Drew Sullivan.
The new but interested person.
Good, good. And in Ward 8,
Dave McLaughlin.
Dave McLaughlin, I think, right?
Yeah.
Good.
And
He's
Ward-
another gentleman who has experience on the
Bill
board.
And Bill Ohm in Ward 9.
And Bill Ohm in Ward 9. Excellent. Another good slate. And of course, on Public Works, I'm going to put in a plug for my wife, Shannon, who is running, who's one of the
Better
3
put in a
candidates.
plug for her.
One dinner tonight.
Yeah.
And Davidson, Don Davidson.
Don Davidson, Fire
Davidson.
Commission.
Fire Commission.
Yes, a former mayor,
Right.
Don Davidson. I think he brings a wealth of experience and knowledge to that position as well. So
And we'd like
wish
to
him
have
well.
everybody out to vote. I mean, get the people, get your neighbors out to vote, because this is critical. And if nothing else, it's going to mean something on your tax rate coming
Well,
up.
tax rate, it's a big issue these days because we had the revaluation, which was a disaster,
Right.
disastrously rolled out, disastrously managed, and a lot of problems have come out of that. Problems that the city doesn't want to even acknowledge or admit to. But
All of this out of control spending leads to higher taxes.
it does. That's
mean,
where the
it's-
money
it's that
comes
simple.
from. Governments don't make money.
They don't make
They
money.
take
They
it.
take money.
That's what they do.
That's right.
And this city, unfortunately, I don't think is earning the money that they're taking, and it's a big disappointment. So election day in a couple of weeks is very, very important. And of course, we have an election coming up next year too,
Right.
which is another big event. New Hampshire factors very prominently in that entire process. And of course, there are things going on nationally and internationally that will affect people's view of the candidates. Now,
But it's
Turkey-
also a state election next.
also a state election. Also a state election. There's so much going on. We have Governor Sununu, who I think is doing an outstanding job. He's really making this economy work
Approval
for
ratings
everybody.
are
In
sky
spite
high.
of what opponents say, it's working for everybody.
Yeah.
And I think he's doing a great job. So we're going to certainly be talking more about that in the lead up. But there is some news today coming out of
Yes.
Turkey,
Right.
coming out of Syria and Turkey, that President Trump negotiated a ceasefire. Carl, you want to tell
Right.
us a little bit about that? It just happened
Well,
today.
just what I heard him say this morning, that there has been agreement. I don't think people know that over the last 2 years there's been a lot of back contact, where everybody over there has been contacted and been working on this kind of agreement. I think that was intent. That the president, has been wanting to get our boys home from some of those conflicts over there.
That was a campaign promise.
That was right. And he did want the people who are over there to get more attention and more support, paying them. Why should we be paying money to support all this work that's being done over there? And I think he did it by, I don't know, I think what seemed to be spur of the moment type of decision wasn't. It was a 2-year program that he was working on, getting Russia, Turkey, the Kurds and the Syrians to get to work together. And what's happening is that with a little bit of movement that gives Turkey security to their border, and that the Kurds are sort of isolated between Iraq and Syria in their own little contiguous area, and the Syrians.
And the oil fields in Syria.
What?
The oil fields in Syria.
They're being protected by the military that we have left over there.
Right.
That's sort of to make everybody say that, you know, nobody's going to steal it. I think that was one of the big problems. Who was selling it, you know? So now there's going to be some control. Everybody gets a piece of the action. And that was one of the things that they've been fighting over for the last umpteen years.
All right. Well, hopefully this is going to be a ceasefire and some element of peace that lasts for a little while. I have to say that I strongly support the president's move to bring our troops home.
Right.
I was never in the military, but I did work for a defense contractor, and I deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan. I saw the size of our operation there. The bases, some bases that I was at had 30,000 people on them. Others have 50 or 60 people on them. And it's a risk for everybody over there. I was glad to see it, glad to participate, glad to serve my country that way. But for us to be involved, I think wasting our resources, whether it's capital or blood, is not right. I want to see these guys and gals come home so that they're back home where they belong in their families, and let some of those folks over there pick up the mantle themselves and deal with their own issues.
You can't keep trying to help people who don't want to help themselves. You know, you just can't do that.
I think that if we step aside, they will step up. But as long as we're willing to do it, they're not.
That's my point.
That's your point.
We still have all the NATO people that aren't paying the Sherry.
I know.
But I think
more of them are.
More of them
More of them are under President Trump, and I think that's good.
I think he wants some of them to be helpful in that area.
Right.
And he does have his ways of making sure anybody that misbehaves gets back online, because he knows how to control their purse strings.
Yes, he
certainly does.
That's very good. Good. Well, we're out of time.
Okay.
The time always goes fast. Thank you all for coming in. Thank you, Doris, for the update on what's going on in the school board. And folks at home need to understand that this election in 2 weeks, makes a difference. So we got a school board slate of candidates, we got a board of aldermen slate of candidates, and we've got my wife Shannon running for Board of Public Works.
And you'll get dinner tonight.
I get dinner tonight. All right. Thank you all very much for coming in, and thank you too, folks at home, for tuning in. This is The People's View. My name is David Schoeneman, and been hosting your program today. We look forward to seeing you at the polls in 2 weeks. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.